Hello everybody, thank you for joining with us, and here we are on our 11th trip into the book of Song of Solomon, which is, as you know by now, is just such a beautiful book full of analogies and encouragement to us as individuals and as the church. And today we're in chapter 2, which really is my favourite chapter. Although, yeah, so many of them are favourites, aren't they? And these next two verses are verses that I've spent a lot of time dwelling on because they really minister to me. So let's see how far we should get. We're looking in chapter 2, and we'll start with verse 3 and see how far we get in our 10 minutes that we have today. So last time we looked at how he says she's like a lily among thorns, and we talked about favour and how God has chosen us and blessed us, and he is always good, so he's right in what he does with us, and how sometimes it's difficult to accept favour, but we are favoured. We are like a lily among thorns, and she says in return to him, like an apple tree among the trees of the forest is my beloved among young men. So what is the comparison here? So firstly, we know that the beloved is the apple tree, because he's who my beloved is, like an apple tree. And amongst trees of fields, trees of the forest, and in the second part it said among the young men. So the young men are the trees of the forest, and her beloved is the apple tree. So why did she draw this comparison, an apple tree to trees of the forest? So she's comparing them to what is on offer to give her love. In this case, because it's looking at the love between a bride and a groom, we're looking at the love relationship that you gain. And so she's looking at things that she can get her love from and her satisfaction from. So the young men are like the forest trees, but her beloved is like an apple tree. And the difference between those two things, well, trees of the forest, they're all struggling to get light. They're all struggling to get the water, the moisture from that around them. Maybe struggling is the wrong word, but they're all striving to reach the light and to grow and to reproduce. But here, the apple tree is the only one that is actually giving something. It's giving fruit, and it's providing sustenance. It's providing freshness, sweetness. So she's saying that her beloved, when you compare what she gets from him to all the other things in the world that could be drawing her attention or causing her, so she's chosen to love the apple tree rather than any of the other trees of the forest. The apple tree is the only one that's giving something, that's giving fruit, rather than actually blocking out the light. And sometimes other things that draw our attention, or that we could give our love to or our favour to, or give ourselves to, are things that actually block out the light, and they're all just clamouring for the light themselves. And sometimes there are other things in our lives that they block out what God's trying to do when we give ourselves and give our love and our attention to something other than the apple tree. And it's quite interesting. I mean, we're not, the scholars say that they're not even really certain that it was an apple, but it was some sort of fruit, and I think they say it could have been also an apricot. But the same word that's translated apple here is the word that's translated apple elsewhere. So when we look to Jesus, he's someone who gives to us in a place where there are a lot of other things clamouring for our attention. Those other things actually block out the light and don't give us anything. But Jesus, in the midst of that, in the midst of all those other things that are clamouring for our attention, he is actually there holding out fruit to us, holding out something that is sweet, something that gives us sustenance. But the next bit, so moving away from the forest idea now, she says, I delight to sit in his shade, and his fruit is sweet to my taste. And this verse, I have just pondered this verse so many times, because with everything that's going on around, either family things or work things, or your attention is called in so many places, your phone's always going off, there's interesting things you maybe want to watch on TV, there's you're thinking about health. Now we have the pandemic, and what do we believe about this, and all the different bits of news that come on about it, how terrible it is, how it's fake, how it was engineered, how it's you know, there's just so many different things going on. And in all those things, the best thing and the thing that I've found brings me most comfort is when I just get alone and just sit with God and just ponder his goodness. And sometimes I feel guilty about that. I feel lazy if I'm just sat there just enjoying God and his presence. But this gives me a reason to do it. I'm actually being scriptural. When I withdraw from the things of the world, from all the other trees that are in the forest, and from everything else that's going on in life, and when I just come and sit in my chair and ponder the goodness of God, I am delighting to sit in his shade. And his shade is something that protects you, isn't it? It protects you from the heat, from the things that drain you. You know, heat drains you. And if it's talking about shade, then there must be light there as well, which is why I said we've moved away now from the forest. She first contrasts him between the trees and the forest, but now she's talking about him as being this thing that provides sustenance and sweetness, goodness, provision. And she says she delights to sit in his shade. So yeah, sometimes if ever you want to spend time with God, but there are so many other things drawing your attention, just remember that he's the apple tree. All the other things are the trees of the forest. Give your time to the apple tree. Just go and sit and delight in his shade. His love, his goodness, his beauty, who he is protects you from all those things that are going on in the world. And when you immerse yourself in who he is, it's a good place to be. It's a place of protection. But also, it's not just a place of protection, but it's a place of feeding. You know, that fruit is what naturally comes out of something. You know, an apple tree naturally produces apples. Thorn bush naturally produces thorns. Pear tree naturally produces pears. It doesn't have to force them out. They come because that is the fruit of that thing. And we as Christians, you know, our fruit is supposed to be love and joy and peace. That's what's supposed to naturally come out of us. And the more we give to that, the more we spend time on that and give time to that, then the more that comes. So what she's saying is, what comes out of Jesus feeds her. It is sweet. It's not something bitter. It's not something harsh. It's not something difficult to swallow. But the fruit that comes from Jesus, that we get to partake, we get to eat from, we get to enjoy, to consume, is sweet. So this just gives me a surety that it is the right thing to do, to escape from the things of the world, to be alone and to have that time. I guess for some people, you will not be in that position. You maybe have young children calling on you and needing you. But if there's any time you can take, even if it's for a few minutes before you go to bed, to just come sit alone when the kids are asleep, when everything else is stopped. And if you can't get those, the middle of the night is so good, you know. Nobody bothers you in the middle of the night. Oh, no, I'm forgetting. It's been a long time. When I had kids, they did bother you in the middle of the night. Or bother might not be the right word. But anyhow, wherever you can get time, and if you are in a place where you do have time, enjoy it. You don't have to rush. You don't have to go about your business and get things done, which is something that affects me a lot. I keep thinking, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. There's still dishes down there. There's still things that need washing. The bed needs changing. The garden needs weeding. The accounts need doing. All those different things. But when we just block those things out, get under his shade, enjoy the fruit that he's given us, then we get sustained. Then we have enough strength to go on with the next day or the next moment or the next task. And it's all from being in his presence, from delighting. Do you delight to sit in his shade? Maybe it's something that you maybe need time to develop, a delight to sit just under him, who he is, just pondering the goodness of God and who he is and what he's got. And I would really encourage you to do that. And what I'm going to do now, being that we've done 9 minutes, I'm going to leave the next verse to the next session. So I hope you'll join me for session 12, and we'll have a look at let him lead me to the banqueting hall and let his banner over me be love. See you then.